Have you ever stopped to really look at an insect? I mean, really look. Today, we're going to shrink down and do just that. We're taking a deep dive into the absolutely amazing and, yes, intricate world of insect anatomy.
Our guide for this journey is a source called The Intricate Design of the Insect Body Plan. And that quote right there really sets the stage. It means we're going to be looking at the insect's body through a very specific lens, viewing all its complexity as a marvel of purposeful, meticulous design.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll touch on that core idea of a marvel of design. Then, we're going to take a tour of the insect's body, piece by piece, starting with the high-tech head, moving to the mighty midsection, and wrapping it all up with the amazing abdomen.
Okay, so the central idea from our source is this. When you see the sheer complexity we're about to explore, all these tiny, specialized parts working together perfectly, it makes you ask the question, could something like this really come about by just random chance?
You know, just about every insect you'll ever see is built on the same fundamental blueprint. Its body is divided into three main sections, so let's explore each one and see just how its parts are perfectly kitted out for whatever that insect does to survive.
All right, first stop, the head. And you really got to think of this as the insect's command center. It's not just where the brain is hiding, it is packed to the brim with an incredible array of high-tech sensors and custom-built tools. Let's start with the eyes, because they are not like our eyes at all. An insect has what's called a compound eye, and it's made of tons of tiny, separate hexagonal lenses. This amazing structure gives it this incredible panoramic view of the world around it, without even having to turn its head.
And get this, a single compound eye on something like a dragonfly can have up to 28,000 of these individual lenses. Each one is like a tiny pixel, grabbing one piece of the bigger picture. I mean, the amount of engineering crammed into such a tiny space is just mind-blowing.
So, you might be wondering, how on earth does an insect process all that data? Well, its tiny brain, we're talking smaller than a pinhead, takes the signals from every single one of those thousands of lenses and instantly stitches them all together to create the image it sees. It's an unbelievable feat of data processing.
And then we've got the antenna. Believe me, these are so much more than just feelers. Just look at the variety here. A moth has these beautiful feathered antennae to sniff out chemicals in the air. A cockroach has long, thread-like ones for touch. They're vital tools for taste, smell, and sometimes even hearing, each one a perfectly tuned sensor for that insect's life. Now, this is a perfect illustration of what the source calls custom-made parts. On the left, you've got a fly with a spongy mouthpart, just right for soaking up liquids. But on the right, the mosquito has a long, thin tube, basically a perfectly designed straw for sucking. Each one is built for a completely different menu.
And it's not just the main mouth parts. Even their jaws, the mandibles that move side to side, are uniquely shaped. A grasshopper has these tough mandibles for grinding up plants. A mosquito's are like tiny, sharp needles. And a horsefly? Its jaws are like little razor blades, each tool for a very specific job.
Okay, so we've left the command center. Now let's head to the engine room, the thorax. This mighty midsection is the absolute powerhouse of movement, because this is where both the legs and the wings connect.
And just like the mouth parts, the legs are incredibly diverse. A mole cricket has these shovel-like front legs for digging tunnels. Some water insects have paddle-shaped legs for swimming. And a housefly has these tiny claws and sticky pads that let it just walk right up a window, defying gravity. Each leg is perfectly engineered for its environment.
The wings, of course, are another marvel. In fact, they're so unique that entomologists, that's the scientists who study insects, often classify them based on their wings. It's why you see so many insect orders ending in Pteroptera, which is just Latin for wing. The tiny pattern of veins on a wing is almost like a fingerprint for that species.
Our tour is now heading to its final stop, the amazing abdomen. Think of this section as the insect's life support center. It's where all the digestion and breathing happens, but it's also where you find some really interesting specialized tools. So wait a minute. How does an insect even breathe? I mean, no nose, no lungs, right? Well, the secret is something called spiracles. They're these tiny little openings running all along the sides of the body, kind of like a whole row of nostrils. And that's where the air gets in.
And this system is incredibly efficient. Air comes in through the spiracles, then travels through a whole network of tubes called trachea.
Those tubes branch out into smaller and smaller tubes, which deliver oxygen directly to the individual cells that need it. It's a direct delivery pipeline for oxygen. No lungs needed. It's an amazing design.
And finally, the abdomen is also home to some really cool gadgets. An earwig has those famous pincers on its tail for defense. A springtail has this neat little forked lever it uses to launch itself into the air. And lots of female insects have a sharp tool called an ovipositor, designed to lay eggs in very specific, safe places.
So as we wrap this up, think about what we've seen. From eyes with 28,000 lenses, to mouthparts custom-made for their food, to that wild direct-to-cell breathing system, every single part of the insect seems to be perfectly and intricately designed for the exact life that it lives.
And that really brings us back around to that final thought-provoking question from our source material. When we see this level of detail, this kind of intricate and seemingly purposeful design in even the tiniest creatures, what does that suggest about where it all came from? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.